Hello everyone and welcome to Olsem Wanem. Towards the end of last year, 2013, a sensitive national issue regarding medicine distribution in Papua New Guinea began after the PNG Central Supply Tenders Board awarded a contract of 71 million kina to a company called Borneo Pacific Pharmaceutical Limited. Before we go into our story, let's take a look at what the Central Supply Tenders Board does, and later, facts and figures on PNG's health sector.
The Central Supply and Tenders Board, with their motto "Without Fear or Favour," is established under Section 39 of the Public Finance Management Act 2003. They are created to control and regulate procurement. The board also has responsibility for overseeing the provincial supply and tenders boards and any specialised supply and tender boards. The Act provides the board with the authority to execute contracts on behalf of the Government of Papua New Guinea up to a value of 10 million kina for the procurement of goods, works and services and the disposal of assets. The procurements with a value of more than 10 million kina, they will be reviewed by the board before being referred to the National Executive Council for approval and execution by the Governor-General. All procurements undertaken by procuring entities with a value of more than 300,000 kina must be referred to the board and put to public tender. The Central Supply and Tenders Board also gazettes all contracts awarded in accordance with the Public Finance Management Act. The role of each Supply and Tenders Board is to ensure that major procurements conducted under its authority have been carried out in accordance with the Public Finance Management Act, regulations and financial instructions, and represent value for money for the Government of Papua New Guinea. In carrying out this role, Supply and Tenders Boards must adhere to the principles of transparency, effective competition, fair and ethical dealing, and efficient and effective operation. The chairman of the Central Supply and Tenders Board is Mr. Philip Eludeme, the board secretary Mr. Babaga Naime. One relevant example of the role of the Supply and Tenders Boards in Papua New Guinea is highlighted when mid-last year, 2013, PNG's Central Supply and Tenders Board, on behalf of the National Department of Health, invited tenders for the supply of health centre and aid post medical supply kits. The health sector of Papua New Guinea is considered a major priority, as Papua New Guinea has a population of over 7 million people. About 80% of the population lives in rural areas. Access to widely scattered rural communities is often difficult, slow and expensive. Administratively, the country has 22 provinces and 89 districts. At the CIMC National Development Forum last year, the Secretary for Health, Mr. Kase, reflected in his speech that a key strategy to improving health outcomes in rural areas is to ensure adequate medical supplies are procured and distributed on a regular basis. In relation to medical supplies reform, a review was conducted by the Ministerial Task Force on Medical Supplies in 2008. A report was presented to the Health Department to implement some recommendations. This included reforms to the previous system, of which National Health Department was to downsize the number of area medical stores, split pharmaceutical standards, and procurement of drugs in separate functions within the department, and build provincial transit stores for each province. According to the Secretary of Health, as a temporary measure, medical kits have been organised with the support of AUSAID, and this will continue for the next 4 years until a procurement system is fully established. The core of these reforms is to streamline delivery, improve governance arrangements for better management, and ensure the right drugs are provided on time and are of optimum quality. He stated a Cabinet policy submission is prepared for the Cabinet consideration and approval to implement the medical supplies reforms in the health sector. At that time, Secretary of Health statement in June last year, AUSAID announced in December the same year, 2013, their decision to axe funding for the supply of medicines in Papua New Guinea. The Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and the Trade has withdrawn funding for a $38 million program to supply medical kits to almost 3,000 health centres across Papua New Guinea, following what they believed a flawed tender process administered by the PNG Health Ministry and the Central Supply Tenders Board. Naturally, this stirred a considerable amount of concern and response from citizens around the country and the medical community. According to the Financial Management Manual from the Department of Finance, all supply and tenders boards must have written complaint handling procedures. Organisations directly involved in a major procurement may lodge complaints in relation to supply and tenders board decisions to award tenders or certificates of inexpediency where the complainant organisation has been directly involved in the procurement process. Complaints should be resolved at the lowest possible level, preferably by the complainant and the Supply and Tenders Board. If the complainant in relation to a Supply and Tenders Board decision is unable to be resolved with the Supply and Tenders Board, then the complainant may request the Ombudsman Commission to review the process that led to the decision. The Ombudsman Commission of Papua New Guinea was envisaged as the institution that would provide a quick, flexible means of restoration for wronged citizens suffering from administrative injustice. The Ombudsman Commission was seen as the institution that would assist ordinary people throughout the country who felt mistreated by actions or inactions of the bureaucracy of any institution of government. The Ombudsman Commission is an independent institution established directly by the Constitution. It forms an integral part of the system of checks and balances that have been out in place by the Constitution to regulate the governance of Papua New Guinea. In general terms, the Commission has been established to guard against the abuse of power by those in the public sector, assist those exercising public power to do their jobs efficiently and fairly, and impose accountability on those who are exercising public power. Former chairman of the Public Service Commission, Rigo Lua, is the country's new chief ombudsman as of mid-last year, 2013.
More when we come back. The saga behind the tendering process for the supply of medicines in Papua New Guinea. The tendering process began May last year when the PNG's Central Supply and Tenders Board, on behalf of the National Department of Health, invited tenders for the supply of health center and 8-post medical supply kits under a standing offer arrangement and delivery to designated locations in Papua New Guinea.
It began last year when in May the Department of Health put out a request through the Central Supply and Tenders Board for a standing offer arrangement for supply of health centre and 8-post medical supply kits. The mandatory criteria in that request for tender states the ISO 9001-2008 Quality Management System Accreditation of Tenderer, quality assurance covering supply chain, manufacture and delivery of medical supply kits, certification for good manufacturing process and good distribution process. It also had a note: non-compliance with any or all of the mandatory criteria will result in elimination of the tenderer from further consideration. Qualitative criteria states: demonstrated experience and performance in providing custom health kits, technical evaluation of products, kit contents against relevant quality standards to include evidence-based efficacy and safety, financial capacity and viability. Under the title Value for Money, it states price and performance against qualitative criteria. The official closing date was 30th May 2013. However, at the end of May, the Central Supply and Tenders Board extended the deadline for tenders submission to 20th of June. On the 6th of June, the Secretary for Health announced that the requirement that tenders must have ISO Quality Management System accreditation was removed. Of the tenders submitted, the Central Supply Tenders Board recommended to the government the 71 million kina bid by Borneo Pacific Pharmaceuticals. This decision created what is now dubbed the Borneo Contract, with many citizens and medical experts around the country demanding answers as to why there was a removal of the ISO 9001-2008 Quality Management System accreditation. Incidentally, Borneo Pharmaceuticals does not hold this Quality Management System accreditation. Olsem Wanem contacted Borneo Pharmaceuticals to be involved in this program and discussed their mission, company and dedication of this contract to Papua New Guinea. However, as stated over telephone, one director, Mr. Ego Baru, replied that Mr. Jimmy Po and Mr. Martin Po were out of the country. Mr. Baru confirmed receiving emails from the Olsem Wanem program for their comments. However, Mr. Po chose not to reply. Borneo Pacific was established in PNG 17 years ago by Malaysian investors who have since become PNG citizens. The company sells pharmaceutical, medical consumable and dressing, IV fusion and injection, laboratory and medical latex products. They also have sub-companies: travel agency, construction, stationery, supermarket goods and auto engineering products. As a supplier in winning the 71 million kina contract for the supply of health centres and distribution of medical kits throughout Papua New Guinea, they do not hold a Quality Management System accreditation. It is known that Borneo Pacific imports medicine from a manufacturer called the North China Pharmaceutical Group. In an interview with Olsem Wanem, the Secretary for the Health Department has confirmed this.
Borneo is not a manufacturer of medicine, so that's why, like I said, the ISO requirements on Borneo is not very necessary at this stage. And even if a city pharmacy or chem care or all that, if they were to win this tender, that's not necessary at this stage. But we would want the manufacturers of those companies to make sure they have an ISO. The current tender, I understand that from the technical advice that we are getting, North China Pharmaceutical Company factory is one company that will be providing a majority of the medicines, but there are other companies around 5 countries of the region of the world that will also be supplying medicines. Currently, under the tender that the IDA is supplying through OSAID funds, that the current medicines, there are about 8 to 10 products are coming from the North China company as well. So this is not a new company that we just go into buying medicines from. They have been supplying Papua New Guinea before and even through IDA as well.
However, medical research published internationally indicates a substantial amount of counterfeit drugs entering Papua New Guinea in previous years. In 2011, Ne et al. In the Journal of Pharmaceutical Sciences reported that all samples of medicines supplied to PNG from the North China Pharmaceutical Group did not meet quality standards, and one sample was clearly counterfeit, or in other words, fake. The North China Pharmaceutical Group manufactures 4.1 billion vials, tablets, capsules per year.
Pasco Kase, Secretary for Health, explains on behalf of the Department of Health the contract given to Borneo Pacific Pharmaceuticals. He says that it is the first time that the PNG government is using its own money and government procedures to procure this medicine.
Health is quite a challenge at the moment because of many years of neglect in terms of infrastructures and equipment, even medical supplies. So this is the first time that the government through the health department is buying this level of medicine. That is a huge quantity, and it costs a lot of money as well. So certainly it is the biggest that we have ever gone through. Normally we buy medicine at 5 million and below from time to time. Like in a year's period you might have 100 million that we spend, but not in one go like the 71 million that you mentioned. This is a big volume. So it's not for just, it's for the whole country as well. So doing the tender and putting order is one thing. The goods have to come in. And so my department, in order to making sure that we receive what we get, we have a plan in place now for monitoring. In the past, I think one of the weaknesses that we have seen in the health department is we are good at buying those goods, but we don't try to check, to monitor them, to making sure that we're receiving what we bought. So this time, that's exactly what we are going to do. We are going to monitor this medicine. And as I said, our delegation is leaving on Saturday to go to China. And these are highly technical experts to go and see the factory. They ask the right question. They must see samples of them to making sure that what we are buying is what we are going to get. Borneo can buy any medicine, or city pharmacy can buy any medicine. Bocha and Mua can buy any medicines. For the health department, our interest is where they're getting these medicines from. That's where ISO is become relevant. So if for people to ask Borneo or any companies that win this tender whether they have an ISO, that's not very relevant right now, because we would require the manufacturer, because them receiving it, they don't make a change to it. They are not going to store them in their factory. They will be getting them from where they are produced straight to the provinces and district. So for requiring such a thing, we are going to require all pharmaceutical setup in the country to have ISO. And ISO, in order for you to have ISO, it takes years. It takes years for organization to set up, and then you require international team. So right now that question is irrelevant at this time, because a lot of people are asking this kind of question because they have an intention of why they're asking this question, because they think that somebody else should have this tender. But it happened that a local company wins it, and according to the process that we require. And when we require this ISO as a requirement in the tender specification, all the local companies had their pre-bid meeting, which this particular question was raised to the health department as the authority. So he said, how do you expect us within 3 weeks or 4 months, we are going to have an ISO compliant? And so what decision can we make? Normally when a new policy or a law requirements on business, you have to allow them time to get prepared. So I know all the companies in town now have been told to make sure that they get prepared. But for asking that kind of question whether Borneo is qualified or not, it's not relevant for that. It's the manufacturer of that product that has to have ISO. Borneo is just a middleman, or any other company is a middleman. That there's no company in Papua New Guinea have an ISO, and this is how do you expect local companies to be compliant on a process that will take years to be established? And as I said, this is an international standard that it's a voluntary on nations to take them on. For Papua New Guinea, for us, we would want the manufacturers of those medicines to making sure that they are compliant with the ISO requirements. Borneo and any other companies that we have at the moment in the country are middle persons. They are only the middle person that are managing medicines through distribution and procurement. Whereas the IDA and MISINFA are international companies, and because where they work, that's the requirement they have. For us, we have the requirements, but not for the suppliers, but for the manufacturer, because the important things is the safety and efficacy of those medicines, that they must be of standards. And we would want to make sure at all time, whatever medicines that come into Papua New Guinea are coming from a factory that is ISO compliant, so that we are sure that the medicines are effective for that purpose. Yeah, that's a good point, and I agree. Like various report in the media, and I think myself and the minister have been coming out in the newspapers about trying to explain to Papua New Guineans what this process has been involved, and what processes has been used. So that has been done, but I cannot say that we failed. We did we did take a lot of time in doing this. I think people are making a criticism without being informed properly, and I'm happy that I'm here today so that we can tell them about the situation. This is a vigorous process that technical experts, pharmacists and senior medical officers have to get into the process, and it's not like a departmental head or the government just go and say, oh, I want this company to provide this medicine. No, it has to go through a vigorous process, and so it's not that easy. So, and it is also, it's medicines. It's not like building a house or an ordinary house or anything that you can just pick up anyone on the street. You have to look at experience, expertise, where the medicines are coming from, some histories of good performance. And I think that's what the department has gone through, and I think there's a lot of criticism. And it's good to have those criticisms. But I want to say that medicines over the years, in the recent past and in the past, we have been having a lot of challenges that medicines are running short in a lot of our health facilities and a lot of complaints. And I think in the last probably 3 or 2 years, we're starting to see medicines in our facility that we are not running short and no constant media coverage about being short. So there are a lot of good improvements that are now happening in the health department with the assistance of our development partners, especially Olsem, in making sure that we have our medicines available at all time. We now have a plan to reform the medical supply management and distribution, to making sure that we organize ourselves to improve.
It is above all important to remember, and as stated in the National Health Plan 2011 to 2020, health is everybody's business.
Health is definitely everyone's business. This fact not only applies to Papua New Guinea but all around the world. And because of this, citizens have a right to voice their concerns. One rather significant issue ignited by this saga dubbed the Borneo contract is the issue of transparency. With so much at stake, such as the human lives involved, and with the retraction of funds from the Australian government, the people are rising and demanding answers from their leaders.
So some of the companies in Borneo, not that this ISO certification on management, quality management, but all put in bid go inside. Time will isabe, not that this quality management certification. And then time the bidding process, I got deadline belong in 31st of May or something last year. Secretary Blo Health kirap na to maski long this ISO, but and look at right la talk just maski that's all on one official document where all get a line hard work na put in bid bloody companies long or line spending plenty money and look is in this international quality management certification. So suppose Secretary Blo Health or some of the line of government he like deleting this requirement where all companies he must get long and all he can eligible or long put in bid long or marsin, all he must rework him all this tender documents and start again. But they didn't do that. So medical society thing was saying no good this whole process is illegal, that it's invalid. Perhaps we should challenge it in the courts, because if the court found that the government had actually broken its own regulations, then the whole bidding process for this this tender might be declared invalid, in which case the government has lost a lot of money. Borneo, now me looking at Borneo, he walk lo tram lik revenge na lo me long stopping me lo tok. And some line long health department too, minister too, he like stopping Mipla Medical Society lo tok, or Salim Secretary Blo Healthy Kam, long tok lo Mipla Executive lo Medical Society, lo asking Mipla lo stop tok. Now Mipla explaining lo Secretary also, sorry, and Mipla and President he been working on a nice statement this time, lo explaining lo Secretary also, Medical Society he got role long give him advice to people of Papua New Guinea about quality and transparency and good pasin lo health, or get a health something lo this like country. So people are looking one something straight long inside something below health services or medicine or this like kind. People by talk out here. Not for some line politician or who's this kind of talk. Yeah. This is not a repressive society. You want a democracy, and people got concerned. People can out in place.
Really, no leader has come forward as well to question this. No leader seems to be concerned. I'm thinking. And everyone should be jumping up and down and saying this is a problem. I mean, when we talk about health, we would want the best for our people. So rather than confining it and using the excuse that we need to select a local firm, why don't we go through the process of trying to find the best pharmaceutical company or the best company that can do that, regardless of where that company is from. So in that way, we have assured the best possible health care for our people. And then over time, if a company that is local that emerges has the capacity and is accredited and is recognized, then we can transfer that contract over time by the bidding process, the procurement process to such a company. We want the best for our people. We want the best possible drugs. We want the best possible services.
That in the Department of Health over many years, as a result of appeals from successive ministers, secretaries and many other people concerned with health, there's been a huge amount of money and time devoted to solving the issues of purchase and distribution of medical supplies in Papua New Guinea. And for some inexplicable reason, we keep ending up in the same mess that we've been worried about for years. I've heard also of a recent survey which, after great painstaking effort by the Institute of Medical Research and others, I've identified many more problems with the quality of drugs in the system. Now, there are suggestions that the company that we're talking about is one of the major importers of a product from a Chinese company which was identified as being one of the major offenders in supplying ineffective or poor quality or possibly even counterfeit drugs to the PNG market.
Is it the North China Pharmaceutical?
This brings about the issues of transparency. The global organization Transparency International explains in this video.
When politicians don't make decisions to benefit the public, but rather themselves, this is corruption. Corruption by politicians or public officials is not just an envelope filled with money. These people make decisions that affect our lives. We know corruption is a problem around the world, but how bad is it, and what can be done? The highest levels of corruption are in countries plagued by conflict and poverty. Corruption doesn't just fuel such problems, it makes them very difficult to stop. But countries can and do improve. The Corruption Perceptions Index forces governments around the world to take notice of corruption. But recognising the problem is only part of the solution. Transparency International helps citizens to demand accountability from their leaders. And we show governments what they can do to tackle corruption. Working together, we can make corruption a thing of the past. Learn more at www.transparency.org.
John Clark, a global security expert, talks about the impact fake drugs has on consumers in this global awareness video.
Counterfeit medicines pose a threat because they're such a huge problem, and it's a growing problem. We've seen the numbers since we started tracking here in Pfizer multiply significantly since 2004 when we first started taking statistics. I think global law enforcement is doing a better job, but the fact that they're seizing so many counterfeits worldwide is just showing how the numbers and the problems growing. And the problems with counterfeits are that oftentimes people just aren't aware, and smart counterfeiters don't put poisons in their counterfeit medicines. There's not an immediate cause and effect, so that an unwitting patient taking a counterfeit suddenly has a bad reaction and stops taking it. The really scary thing about counterfeits are that sometimes they're benign in terms of health consequences from a negative perspective, but at the same time they have no efficacy. They don't have authentic product in it, so they're not treating the symptoms meant to be treated by the legitimate product. So there could be millions of people around the world taking counterfeits, not recognizing that's the case, and their disease or health issue isn't just being addressed as it should be. So it can be a slow, quiet death, which is, I find, very scary.
And that brings us to the end of this introductory episode of the medicine distribution in Papua New Guinea. We'd like to thank all those involved and to the public for sharing your stories and concerns. Keep your comments coming to the contact details showing on your screen. And join us next week as Olsem Wanem features panel discussions from the PNG Women's Forum, Working Together to Inspire Change, and International Women's Day. Until next time, enjoy the rest of your viewing on your #1 station, MTV.